Welcome back. Hong Kong's finest came under fire as the number of officers investigated for corruption grew. That left many concerned about the state of the territory's law and order.
And what about the future, if any, of the Vietnamese boat people in Hong Kong camps? They're just as determined to fight repatriation as authorities try their best in getting them all home before 1997.
Desperation comes in the form of a lorry crash at the border. Its cargo? Nearly a dozen pregnant illegal immigrants, hoping to give birth in Hong Kong.
Countless mainland mothers hope to secure a better future for their newborns. But whether that future will be a stable one remains uncertain, along with the territory's law and order.
Police powers are scrutinized as corruption racks the force.
I don't regard it as a trend. I regard these as instances which are going to be eliminated.
And the police chief tries to eliminate doubts.
But in fact, when we look at the complaint figures, we can see that for this year, for the first 10 months, and when we compare that with the previous years, we have in fact seen a decrease.
Time may be relative, but some believe the countdown to 1997 is a reason for some officers to be unable to walk a straight line. The government says that's not so.
There is no scientific figures to support that more people enter into corruption because of 1997.
But the public doesn't need proof. More and more people are worried about law and order. The force tries to spruce up its image, but its problems are real. 20% of its top brass are expected to quit before the handover, while a rash of police suicides highlights morale and gambling problems in the ranks.
But what's not expected is police using too much force.
責任咧就話佢一定要好克制咁樣，去點樣令到請願嘅人士可以將佢哋嘅情緒降低。
Later, 3 officers are disciplined after charges against them end up being dropped.
If we bring the case to court, the chance of winning the case is slim.
A suspect dies while under custody. The case causes a confidence problem. Investigations continue along with doubts whether Hong Kong's finest is flexing too much muscle at home and not enough of it elsewhere.
Perhaps a telling sign of things to come. Chinese authorities take in 2 suspected smugglers. The only problem, they're Hong Kong men who were abducted from Hong Kong waters.
We regard this as a serious incident. There is absolutely no question of us ceding control.
The men are later released, but only after intense pressure from the Hong Kong government.
Pressure continues to build as China insists it doesn't want to inherit the boat people problem. Repatriation goes on, but it's a slow and dangerous process. Clashes break out. At Whitehead Detention Center, violence sends scores of VBPs and CSD officers to hospital. It's proof of the detainees' resolve in fighting repatriation as time and hope run out.
In this particular instance, we faced violence from 10,000 Vietnamese migrants.
Some of the 20,000 VBPs decide not to wait around. The barbed wires are unable to prevent despair from escaping.
Resistance intensifies in the camps, but the government is undeterred.
For the moment, we do intend to step up. I've emphasized that there are 2 flights this month, which means that more people will be sent back this month than have ever been sent back during 1 month since orderly repatriation was introduced in '91.
But Hong Kong's efforts are attacked abroad.
Genuine, authentic refugees have been screened out that should have been screened in. That's unjust.
But what could be even more unjust is granting VBP families freedom and then taking it back.
3 VBP families are ordered back to detention after a high court overturns an earlier ruling freeing them.
They're all supporting themselves. They all speak Cantonese. They're all just like the rest of the people in Hong Kong.
The chances of emptying the camps by 1997 are just as bleak as getting the United Nations to pay back billions of dollars.
We're spending as much as we receive for Hong Kong.
With funds and patience running out, last-ditch attempts are made to convince Hanoi to take back nearly 2,000 VBPs a month that it had promised.
It's a problem China doesn't want, and when the Union Jack is lowered, Beijing will find itself the benefactor not only of a colony, but also of an unwanted community. Natural and man-made disasters left their mark on Hong Kong. They caused heartbreak for the victims' families.
And for the government, a rethink on safety measures for the roads and out at sea. 1:30 p.m. at the Yuan Estate in Chai Wan. Fire breaks out at a 5th-floor apartment.
聽到爆炸聲，都好亂咯情形。
The blaze claims the lives of a 14-year-old boy and his 6-month-old baby sister.
Blocked emergency lanes hamper rescue efforts. Firefighters eventually extinguished the blaze, but not the controversy over the obstructed lanes. It's found that 13% of all public estates are fire hazards.
Fire Service Department has no authority, statutory authority, to enforce what it recommends.
Less than a week later, another fire rages through an 8-story industrial building in Aberdeen. The blaze leaves 24 workers injured, and this time, doubts about inadequate fire exits at industrial buildings.
A huge concrete slab rains from a building that's to be demolished in Sanpo Kong. The 200-kilogram block smashes onto a double-decker bus, killing a 51-year-old passenger.
The demolition site isn't on the building's inspection list. That raises worries the buildings department's 30-member monitoring team is unable to check out the more than 1,000 sites that dot the territory.
But dangerous sites and structures stay in the news, with a deadly canopy collapse in Kwun a week later. The illegal second-floor awning kills one man, but residents say it could have bbeen worse.
嗰度係好多嗰啲所謂打冷嗰啲啦，食物嗰啲咁樣咯。如果係7點幾咧，多人食飯咧，咪會多啲人坐喺度咯。
As relatives of the victim mourn, building officials explain why their hands are tied, following up on hundreds of complaints about illegal structures.
Given our limited resources, we just cannot look at everything that is built illegally.
The government later announces owners of old buildings are to be responsible for getting inspections and safety measures carried out.
And another collapse claims the lives of 2 construction workers in Western. About 40 steel rods break loose and bury the 2 in a concrete shaft filled with cement. Experts believe the tragedy may be a result of negligence. On the ground, school bus safety goes into full gear. A boy's backpack is caught in the school bus doors as the driver takes off, fatally dragging the boy with him. Adult chaperones aren't required for the ride to class, and the government says that need not change.
At present, we have reason to believe that a lot of these accidents are caused by drivers who fail to observe the highway code, particularly when they move off. They fail to check the side mirrors.
Tragedy also strikes the educational system with a deadly toxic spill at a lab at the University of Science and Technology. Student Richard Leung dies after he's exposed to fatal fumes caused by a chemical spill. His death prompts a rethink on safety in labs at all the universities. But what can't be regulated is nature's wrath, which leaves its mark on Hong Kong. A typhoon never arrives, but it comes close to it, causing torrential rains and flooding.
firefighters rescue more than 130 people in Kowloon and the New Territories.
如果全部出晒呢啲親戚嗰度啊，你話幾慘啊！真係浸到。
That becomes an understatement. Floodgates for the Shenzhen River are opened to relieve the swollen stream.
And heavy rains cause deadly landslips. In Taiwan, rescuers dig frantically for survivors, but it's too late for a 16-year-old boy. Meanwhile, in Aberdeen, a landslip also claims the lives of 2 people after a dockyard is buried by earth.
Out at sea, weather conditions aren't the only problem. Collisions become more commonplace as vessels compete for elbow room. 2 catamarans crash off Tsingyi, leaving more than a dozen passengers hurt.
It would be crazy to sit here and say that we could create a traffic management regime where there would be no accidents. I mean, that would be pie in the sky. It just couldn't be done.
But what isn't an accident is the narrowing of Victoria Harbour, thanks to reclamation. And then there's a hijacking at sea, a Hong Kong-bound jet foil. Mainland robbers get away with $10 million, but they leave behind new security concerns.
Security on the roads is another issue. On the Tuen Mun Highway, a driver is killed after a falling rock smashes into his vehicle. The potential of a major landslip convinces the government to close off part of the highway.
I have to emphasize, on safety grounds, and safety grounds alone, there was no alternative left but to close that carriageway.
For residents commuting to and from the satellite areas, the move sparks long lines and outrage.
But a different kind of temperature goes up as sunbathers and swimmers seek relief from the summer heat. But enjoyment quickly turns to tragedy for 3 swimmers.
睇到咧，佢嗌救命，舉起右手嗌咗2次救命，咁啊之後咧就靜晒啦，個人咧就浮起啦，咁啊成海血啦。
But in a place where taking a gamble is not unusual, the deaths fail to deter swimmers from taking a dip, as shark warnings go up at 30 beaches.
And that's our look at the events that made the headlines of 1995.
And we hope you enjoyed tonight's program. From Mark and me, a very happy New Year.
Happy New Year.